For 2017, we planned a 4-week trip with 22 riding days covering just under 4,000 miles. Starting with a 2.5-day ride across northern Spain and over the Pyrenees into France, then northeast past Montpellier and Alès before travelling northwards towards northern Italy. North of Genoa, we headed northeast to the top of Lake Garda for a day off the bike to enjoy the area, the food and the wine. From Garda, a 3-day ride towards Innsbruck west through Austria and into Switzerland for another 2 days off the bike with friends. Leaving Switzerland, it was a 5-day ride back into Italy, passing Lake Maggiore through the Aosta Valley and then back into France, south of Courmayeur, passing south of Grenoble and through northern Provence, heading for the eastern Pyrenees, and another couple of days off the bike with friends in Quillon. Back on the road after our mini break, we headed into Spain and west towards Pamplona before another hop over the Pyrenees and a night back in France. Leaving France, we travelled west, south of San Sebastian and Bilbao to end our trip with a couple of days riding in Picos de Europa before boarding the ferry back to the UK. After a move from Sussex to Devon, our route started with a pleasant ride over Dartmoor to catch the ferry from Plymouth to Santander. Three hours shorter than the sailing from Portsmouth and docking early afternoon, it was a relaxing start to our tour, although it was a bit of a damp start. An easy 90 miles to start our tour, passing through Valdecilla, Arredondo and Ramales de la Vitoria, and then on the A264 through Amorillo and onto our overnight at Murguia. Cloudy but dry as we rode off the ferry to join the N635 and then the CA161 at Solares. The weather was a little disappointing, with light rain as we left Santander, but hopefully it wouldn't last. And at least it was fairly warm. We stopped for lunch on the BI 630 east of Molinar before continuing southeast to our first overnight stop at Murguia, at a hotel we've used several times before. It was an easy ride down the CL620 and A624 through Arciniega and Amorillo before reaching our destination. Just short of 190 miles today to our destination in Torla Odessa in central Pyrenees. Heading roughly eastwards all day, passing north of Vitoria down to Estella on the NA718, then south of Pamplona on the NA601 before joining the N240 towards Jaca. Finally into the Pyrenees and Torla on the N260. It was another disappointingly cloudy morning as we left Murguia heading for the Pyrenees. We stopped for coffee at Thudair on the N718, then continued east on lovely quiet roads before we joined the N240 to ride towards Jaca. there's a nice little cafe on the N240 at Verdun, which we've stopped at before, so we had lunch there before we headed up into the Pyrenees. It was great to be back on these fabulous traffic-free roads, and the ride on the N260 up to Torla was a real pleasure. Just a shame the sun wasn't shining. It was the second time we'd stayed in Torla, and by the time we were ready for a wander and a drink, the sun had decided to come out for us. "241 miles riding today, east along the southern edge of the Pyrenees, past La Puebla de Segur and south of Andorra. After that, heading north through Axat and on to Quillon for 2 nights with friends before heading off to Italy." Unfortunately, it was yet another cloudy morning as we left Torla, heading further east, but at least it was warm and the weather did look promising. The roads were fabulous to ride, and by late morning the sun was out, so we bought a few goodies to have a roadside picnic and found the perfect spot on the N260 just west of Sarroca de Bellera. The weather started to look a little ominous as we continued eastward, and by mid-afternoon a few spots of rain were landing on the visors. Time for waterproofs again. Unfortunately, the few spots rapidly turned to heavy rain, thunder and lightning as we rode northwards towards our next overnight in Quillon. Not brilliant weather for us so far on this tour, but hopefully the sunny days were waiting for us. A little over 200 miles today through Cuisa and then east of Carcassonne, riding roughly north past Saint-Pont-de-Thomières, through Clarens-l'Hérault and up towards Alès and then the D906 to La Vernarède for our next overnight. A fabulous morning, clear blue sky and warm sunshine as we left Quillon for our day's ride. North on the D613 with amazing scenery to enjoy as well as the empty roads. We stopped for a coffee at Fabrezan before continuing roughly northeast on the D611 past Olonzac, Ain and Saint-Pont-de-Thomières on the D907. It was a perfect ride this morning, and the weather definitely demanded another picnic. So after buying some more provisions, we stopped beside the D908 east of Badario for lunch. Unfortunately, the sun didn't stay with us for the afternoon. However, although it was warm, the roads were enjoyable, it had turned pretty cloudy again by the time we arrived at La Vernarède for our next overnight. Off to Italy today. 240 miles heading east through Pont Saint-Esprit and Serres, and then south of Gap on the D900B. We crossed into Italy at the Col de l'Arche, and then rode through Borgo San Dalmazio before finishing in Boves, south of Cuneo. A bright, fairly sunny morning as we left La Vernarède to ride to Italy, and it was fingers crossed for a dry day. We stopped for coffee by the lavender fields at Saint-Privat-de-Champclos on the D901 before continuing eastward through Pont Saint-Esprit. Although it had clouded over, we stopped for another picnic lunch beside the D994 between Lépine and Champs-du-Meunier. The D900 becomes the SS21 as it enters Italy northwest of Argentera, and it was a fab ride so far as we entered Italy. yet again, the weather let us down as we continued east, and it was waterproofs on once more for the rest of the ride through the afternoon. It was a pretty unpleasant end to the day as we arrived at Boves for our overnight, and we looked forward to a nice Italian dinner. A shortie today, 128 miles ending up in the mountains north of Genoa, winding our way past Breo, Murazzano and Aquiterme, then south of Ovada through Gavo and on to Pallavicino. Well, it was a fairly sunny morning as we left Cuneo, and we hoped for a dry ride today. Lovely roads through this part of Piedmont, and we stopped for morning coffee at the very pretty village of Murazzano. We continued on the SP31 through Campetto and on towards Ovada on the SS456 and stopped for another picnic just west of Molare. It was purely by chance at exactly the same spot we'd found a couple of years before. It was a fantastic ride through wonderful Italian scenery as we passed through vineyards, villages and valleys on roads that the explorer was just built for. We were ready for a glass of wine when we arrived at Pallavicino, followed by a stroll in the evening sunlight before dinner. What a perfect day! "195 miles, ending up at the northern tip of Lake Garda, and a day off the bike to enjoy the scenery, local food and wine, and hopefully better weather than the last 2 trips to this area of Italy." Yesterday was going to take some beating as far as roads and weather were concerned, but as we headed for Lake Garda, we were optimistic. Experience told us that you can never guarantee the weather in the mountains, but after the previous 2 wet visits to the Italian lakes, we were hoping for a 3rd time lucky. We headed east on the SS 461. It was another warm blue sky morning as we left Pallavicino and stopped for coffee at Bobbio before heading up towards Cremona. On what turned out to be a very hot afternoon, we found a bit of shade to have another picnic lunch beside the SP11 just west of Monticelli Ripa d'Oglio. We arrived at Lake Garda with the sun still shining and plenty of time for a relaxing afternoon by the pool. A beautiful morning for our day off the bike and on the lake. So we used the ferries to visit the lakeside villages and find a restaurant for lunch to enjoy some Italian cuisine and wine. Perfect.
You're the one. You know.
delightfully nice weather for this 160-mile ride through some of the beautiful Italian scenery, passing Cortina d'Ampezzo and Val Gardena to end up in the Dolomites. A sunny morning as we left Lake Garda and headed northwest, passing south of Trento on the SP88 and SP21. We left the more suburban area around the lake and were quickly on the quieter roads, riding through vineyards and fruit orchards with beautiful mountain views. We stopped for coffee at Vigolo Vataro on the SS349 and picked up some food for lunch before heading just south of Lago di Caldonazzo en route to Castelnuovo. A perfect hot and sunny Italian morning so far, and we stopped for lunch by the SP79 just before Gasperi on these gorgeous tree-lined quiet roads through this part of Italy. We turned north on the SR50 just after Pian del Vescovo, following the valleys between Cortina d'Ampezzo and Bolzano. It was a fabulous ride today, and the weather couldn't have been better. Blue skies and sunshine all the way to our destination at La Valle, not far from Val Gardena. A 146-mile ride through the mountains of northern Italy, over the Rombo Pass into Austria and north to our destination west of Innsbruck. Wow, another wonderfully sunny morning as we left Hotel Alpenrose in La Valle, heading for Austria. And it looked this time like we were going to see the mountains, and not just cloud and rain as we had done the previous 2 years. It was an easy cruise on the SS44 past Brunico, and then the SS42 past Mezzaselva before we stopped for a morning coffee just before Vipiteno. After our morning Italian coffee fix, we carried on over the Passo Giovo or Jaufen Pass on the SS44, which was an amazing road with fantastic scenery and views and superb weather. We were smiling today. Hot and sunny and no rush, with less than 150 miles to cover, so we stopped for a leisurely lunch just after Salto on the SS44, shortly before the Austrian border. It was the perfect place to stop. Great food and a fantastic view whilst we had lunch. Too many good sights to see, so we had to stop for some pictures. It was obviously a popular road with bikers. Over the Passo Rombo and an unexpected toll to pay. But what a great road. It turned out to be a very hot afternoon, so we willingly devoured the cold beer that was offered when we arrived at Pension Köhler. "124 miles from Jerzens in Austria to Kurwalden in Switzerland. A leisurely ride today as we plan to arrive early afternoon for a 2-day break." Yet another sunny morning for us as we left Jerzens to head southwest through Sesselbene and Ischgl before turning northwest by the Silvretta-Stausee. There was a fair bit of traffic near Landeck, a bit different to the fab ride we had yesterday, but this was one of the main routes through this part of Austria, so it was hardly unexpected. We left the suburban district of Landeck behind us and continued on towards Bludenz with a quick coffee at Gortipol on Route 188. We had another fabulous ride over the Silvretta Pass, climbing steadily on beautiful roads after passing the Lake Bermundstausee. We encountered another unexpected toll for the pass, but it was worth every penny to ride this beautifully scenic and winding route through the mountains. We passed through Bludenz and Feldkirch before entering Switzerland via Liechtenstein. This part was a slow and arduous route with lots of traffic lights and stop-start riding, and definitely a planning mistake in hindsight. However, after we cleared the suburban areas, the ride through the vineyards towards Chur and then up to Churwalden was a joy again. All in all, a very good day. "205 miles today, heading southwest from Churwalden past Lake Maggiore and into Italy again, north of Biella and onto Pontbasset. Dry but a little cloudy as we left Churwalden, heading back to Italy, but at least it wasn't raining. As we headed down the familiar road from Churwalden to Chur, looking at the clouds ahead of us, we hoped it wasn't going to turn into a day riding in the rain. We had enough of that last year. We left Chur and the couples of Tamins behind us, watching the sky as we headed towards the San Bernardino Pass. We decided to don our waterproof tops as the temperatures dropped approaching San Bernardino, and we were starting to feel the need for a warm drink. Fabulous road, just a shame the weather wasn't better, but it was still a great ride as we climbed higher in spite of the mist and cloud. Time for a coffee at Lake di Sola, just after passing San Bernardino. Coffee done, and a typically expensive Swiss one at that, it was time for the descent towards Lake Maggiore. It wasn't long before it was warm enough to remove the top layer, and the afternoon was looking promising, maybe. This seemed like a good time to stop for lunch as we rode beside Lake Maggiore. Lunch done, and so was the promising weather for the afternoon. The clouds soon thickened as we headed towards Biella, and it was looking like we may finish the day in rain. Sure enough, the spots on the visors started, so it wasn't long before we were back into waterproofs. This is when we realised that we'd left the tank bag cover back in Boves a few days before. Time for a bit of improvisation. So a wet arrival at Pont Bosset, and time for a glass of vino. "184 interesting miles today, passing north of the ski areas of Méribel and Courchevel, over the Col de la Madeleine, past Valmenier and onto La Grave. Blue sky for our departure this morning, and a few classic bikes out for a run too. We'd ridden through here twice before, down the SS-26 towards Aosta and on through La Tuile to the Col du Petit Saint-Bernard, which is a good place for a coffee stop. Although we'd ridden the Col several times before, it was still a real pleasure to be in this area again, with the mountains, scenic views, and unfortunately the threat of rain again. The joys of touring in the mountains, you can never guarantee the weather. And sure enough, spots of rain on the visor as we climbed, so it was on with the waterproofs. Over the top of the Col and Arrivederci Italy, bonjour France. Through a very messy La Rosière, which was having a lot of summer building done, and down to a lunch stop that we've used before at Villars on the D1090. Lunch done, and the sun popped out again. Excellent. It was down to Bourg-Saint-Maurice on the N90 as far as Moutier, where we joined the D213 to head southwards over the Col de la Madeleine. The top of the Col was a good place to stop for our last coffee of the day and admire the views, if somewhat cloudy. We continued through Longchamp 1650 and La Chambre, where we joined the D1006 and continued to Saint-Michel de Maurienne. Here we turned onto the D902 to ride the Col du Télégraphe, the Col du Galibier and the Col du Lautaret, before reaching our destination for the day at Villars d'Arène. We were several days before the Tour de France was due through here, but there were already quite a lot of camper vans staking their patch. This is a must-ride road for anyone in the area. Just fantastic. .139 miles on a nice diverse route today. Heading roughly west through Valbonnet, Les Nonières, Crest and on to Marsin on the D105. What a fabulous start to the day. Clear blue sky, great mountain views and warm. This was going to be a nice ride. Straight on the road for a breakfast stop in La Grave before we headed on the D1091 towards Le Bourg d'Oisans. Great roads, weather and views so far this morning, and we found a little cafe in Roissy on the D34 for our mid-morning coffee. Oh, and a bit of cake. Coffee and cake done, we rode on towards the Col de Menet on the D120, another great road to ride. We found the perfect place to stop for a lunchtime picnic just east of Les Nonières on the D120. It turned into a very hot afternoon as we carried on past Die and Crest on the D93, heading to an early arrival and a cold drink at Marsan. It's a very pretty little village, and an afternoon stroll was just perfect. "185 winding miles today through the Ardèche and Cevennes areas, southwest of Valence. Another blue sky sunny morning as we left Marsan heading west, and a quick stop to admire the view above the village. An easy start today on this lovely sunny morning, and and a quick coffee stop in Marcol-les-Eaux before continuing through the Ardèche. It was obviously going to be another roadside picnic day, so a quick stop to get some goodies in Saint-Sauveur-de-Montagu was needed. Lunch provisions bought, and we carried on towards Mézillac on the D102 and D122. After some fantastic riding this morning, we found a nice little piece of grass beside the D110 just after Belvezet to enjoy our typically French ham, cheese, tomatoes and baguette. Couldn't ask for more. The D906 past the Lac de Villefort was another truly enjoyable road, and it continued to be a good ride after lunch, heading south down the D20 through the Parc National des Cévennes and an afternoon drink at Le Pont de Montvert. The D roads in the Cévennes are incredible, and it was a day to remember, especially with the last section up the D986 from Saint-Ennemi rising up from the Tarn Valley. Another fantastic ride today. A 180-mile ride to Quillon today. We've ridden some of this route before, and in good weather it's a lovely ride, so fingers crossed. Well, it was another fine morning for us as we left Saint-Chély, starting on the D43 and then the D907 through La Malène down the Tarn Valley. A great road. No stops today as we headed down towards the Millau Bridge, as we were visiting our friends in Quillon for a few days and wanted to arrive mid-afternoon. Past the bridge on the D992, and then we were on the D999 towards Carcassonne. The weather started to look a little bit ominous as we got nearer the Pyrenees, so we donned the waterproof tops just in case. Jackets were unnecessary as the cloud lifted again and out popped the sun once more. Excellent! French police were out as we neared Carcassonne, but not interested in us, fortunately. Familiar roads for us again as we neared our stop at Quillon. It was an easy day's riding today, but still enjoyable, and now a couple of days off the bike before heading down to Spain. "215 miles of cruising today on a route we've ridden and driven before, from Quillon, west, then south of Andorra, and then towards the Pyrenees near La Buerda. Not surprisingly, in this part of France, it was a lovely morning for us departing Quillon, for the last part of our tour to northern Spain. It wasn't long before we were in the gorges of Pyrenees and Saint-Georges, just after Axat. After the gorges beside the River Aude, we continued on the D118 to a frequent coffee stop of ours in the little village of Formiguères. We carried on through La Yagonne on the D118 before joining the N116 heading for the Spanish border. It's a fast road and it was good to ride it again in this warm weather. We joined the N260 passing through Martinez and then onto the smaller C14 at Adral. This is another great road to ride, and we stayed with it as far as Col de Nargot, where we turned west on the L511. The L511 through Val d'Arc and up to the Col de Boixol at 1,380 meters is a fantastic ride. We'd driven it a year before, but it's much better on the bike. It's worth a stop at the top to admire the view and get the usual photographs. Now it was just the wonderful windy descent. These roads were made for biking. We joined the C1412, another fantastic road to ride, and then at Puente de Montaña dropped onto the N230 and then the N123 before we started northwards on the A138 to our destination at Escalona. It was a nice, relaxing, easy cruising day on quiet roads that were great to ride and perfect for eating up the miles. The last part of the day was past the lake at El Grado, and then on to our overnight stop and a well-deserved drink. Another fabulous day. A nice little ride today, weather permitting, riding west south of the Pyrenees, then north over the top into France. It was looking sort of okay as we left Escalona. A warm and fairly sunny morning anyway, so hopefully it was going to be a good ride back into France today. But we were well aware how quickly it can change in the mountains. We've been caught out in the past. We were quickly down to the town of Ainsa, where we turned onto the N260 to head west through Boltaña and Jaca. There was a lot of cloud ahead of us again. Typical Pyrenees. But at least it was warm and the roads were good. We were soon at Puente la Reina de Jaca, where we crossed a fairly empty Rio Aragon and joined the N240. And it was time for our morning coffee. We passed Verdun and then on to Sigües, where we turned onto the A137 heading north. It's an interesting road from Salvatierra de Esca up to Burgi, with lots of twists and turns and some brilliant scenery, so it was worth a photo stop at the bridge over the Rio Esca. Through Burgi on the NA137 and then a left turn onto the NA214, which took us west to Navascuez, and then north on the NA178 towards France. Burgi is a very quiet, pretty little village, and we stayed there a night on our last tour. The NA214 is a fabulous road, fast and full of sinuous curves, but we were in cruising mode and enjoying the scenery too. It had been another fantastic ride so far today as we rode through Navascoes and headed north on the NA178. With just over 60 miles to go, it was time to start thinking about lunch. We rode through Ezcaroz and took a left turn onto the NA140. We were now in the Basque region of Spain with a different building style and signposts in 2 languages. What a brilliant road the NA140 is, especially on a warm, sunny day. This was blissful riding, but it was time to stop for some lunch. We found a great little cafe in Varkalos on the N135. After lunch at Valcarlos, it was a short 30-mile ride to our next overnight stop in Banca, nestled just inside the French border. It had clouded over considerably, but it was still warm, and we were looking forward to an early arrival at our destination and a nice glass of wine after another fabulous day on the bike. "130 miles west across northern Spain today, passing south of San Sebastian and then heading south at Echevarria. A typically West Pyrenean damp and cloudy start today, which would hopefully brighten as we headed into Spain. Sure enough, it wasn't long before it started to rain. We turned onto the D940 at Saint-Étienne de Baigorry to head west on this fairly miserable morning. The weather was a bit of a shame, as otherwise these roads would have been really great to ride, and probably with good views too. However, they were still good, and there was no traffic, so we couldn't complain. It got considerably worse as we entered Navarra, and we also had to be careful of animals in the road. No wonder this area is so green. By mid-morning, we were passing through El Gorriaga, Ituren and Zubieta on the NA170. It had stopped raining, but there was still heavy cloud. The on-off rain continued, so as we got to Liezza, we thought it was a good time to stop for a coffee. According to the barman, this is where the Basque language originated. We weren't sure about that. Well, the weather didn't get any better, and as we passed Bidania, it was looking like being wet all day. A bit of a shame, as they were nice roads, but we'd had pretty good weather over the last couple of weeks. We certainly weren't seeing any of the scenery today. No photos and no picnics. So we decided to find somewhere for a quick lunch and just carry on to our next overnight stop. Yep, that was a wet, cloudy, pretty miserable day, but our overnight at Goikobenta next to an old monastery looked interesting. And the food was excellent. Just under 200 miles across northern Spain today, passing south of Bilbao and Santander and finishing near Picos de Europa. It was a disappointingly grey and damp start again as we left our hotel, but at least it wasn't raining. Yet. We've had very mixed weather in this part of Spain over the years, and the last 2 days were not so good either. It was looking like it was going to be another no picnic and few photos day, so we were thinking we'd just truck on to our next overnight stop. This was not particularly enjoyable riding, with low cloud in the hills and the constant drizzle. All part of motorcycling though. By midday, at least it had stopped raining, and the cloud did appear to be lifting slightly, so hopefully the rest of the day would be somewhat more enjoyable. It was time for lunch too, so as we reached the lake near Reynosa, we decided to stop for a while. There were about 70 miles to cover after lunch, and we realised that 2 of the GoPros had packed up. A bit of improvisation needed from the resident pillion camera person. It looked like it was going to remain dry for the rest of the afternoon, and we were both looking forward to some good food and a glass or 2 of vino after our damp and cloudy ride. By late afternoon, we were on the AS 114, heading west to Cangas de Onís and Las Arenas, which was our destination for today. With all the rain, mist and low cloud we had had in the morning and early afternoon, it had felt like a long day, and we were glad to get to our hotel. A pleasant little 150-miler today on the eastern edge of Picos de Europa and up to Espenilla and Ormas for our last overnight stop. With a day off the bike, just wandering around yesterday, our last morning of the tour was warm, blue sky and sunny, perfect for a great ride on these lovely roads around Picos de Europa. Great roads and scenery all the way today, and with less than 150 miles to do, we were in no hurry. Time to just savour the ride. We'd ridden these roads around Picos de Europa many times, but on a day like today, when the weather's good, they never lose their attraction. It's just great. By late morning, we were down near Riaño on the N621, and it was coffee time, so we pulled into Vilafrea de la Reina. Very pretty. At Velilla del Rio Carrión, we turned onto the P210 to head east through the Parque Natural Fuentes Carrionas y Fuente Cobre. This was the furthest south we would be before heading up to Santander the next day. Great roads, fab weather, and a fantastic ride so far today, a little different to 2 days before. After an absolutely brilliant ride this morning, it was time for a relaxed lunch at Campo Redondo on the P210 by the lakes of Embalse de Compuerto. Obviously a popular place for bikers. An easy 55 miles to do after lunch, so we planned to arrive mid-afternoon at our last overnight, where we've stayed several times in the past. Hopefully a glass of vino in the sun on our last afternoon of what would be our last Explorer tour. There was quite a water shortage in this part of Spain this year, with a lot of the reservoirs really low or nearly empty. We were nearly out of the national park as we passed through Bragnosera on the CA 280, which took us up past Barrio. And it's wine time. A very short and easy 42 miles from Ormas to Santander and the ferry back home this afternoon. So this was it, the last day of the last tour. At least it was a sunny one. A familiar route for us today, starting on the CA 171, heading past the lake Embalse del Ebro before turning north on the N623 up towards Santander. And what happened to that sunshine? It rather looked as though we were leaving it behind us. Sure enough, by the time we reached the lake at Hortales, it had started spitting, so we donned the rain tops just in case. But it wasn't long before we needed full waterproofs. Definitely not acceptable for our last day. When we reached San Miguel de Luena on the N623, the rain had eased, but it was still not the ideal way to finish our last tour. At least by the time we reached the port it had stopped, and it was warm enough to remove the jackets while we waited to board. So that was it, the last motorcycle tour for this couple of pensioners. We'd had some great years away on the bike and covered nearly 40,000 miles around Europe without a near miss or accident. So we decided it was the right time to move on. We both miss the Explorer, but hopefully there are new and different adventures ahead of us.